The Ace Tanker Badge is one of the most prestigious medals in all of Blitz, so naturally it isn't always the easiest thing to achieve. However, as you shall soon see, there are some tactics that we can employ that can make it much easier to get more and more aces. And it doesn't matter if you're grinding an event, trying to improve, or just plain flexing. This video will explain all there is to know about getting more aces. Now, the first thing we need to understand about aces is how to even get them in the first place. In order to get an ace in any tank, you must earn more XP in a battle than the average highest XP of 99% of players in the last 7 days for the particular tank that you're trying to ace. To put it simply, you need a lot of XP in a game. Now, there are many things that you can do in a game that will increase the amount of XP you get. Some of these things include, but aren't necessarily limited to, things like getting kills, spotting, blocking damage, capturing bases in Supremacy, assistant damage, and of course, dealing damage yourself. Now, an important thing to realize here is that damage isn't everything when it comes to getting an ace. Now, don't get me wrong, a high damage game will be much more likely to earn you an ace than a low damage game would, but it doesn't always mean that it will. For example, let's say you got a 6,000 damage game in the Waffle where you simply sat at the back of the map the whole game. Well, on the one hand, you did get the 6,000 damage, which is honestly very good. However, the fact that you were sitting at the back of the map unspotted means you are probably having to rely pretty heavily on your teammates doing most of the spotting, which doesn't really fly when it comes to XP. Because there's an interesting system that if you shoot a spotted enemy that's too far away for you to spot yourself, the XP will actually go to your teammates who are spotting. So in this tank destroyer situation here, if you're way at the back of the map, way out of spotting distance from the enemy, and you shoot, sure, you're doing a lot of damage, but almost all of that, if not all of that XP that you would have gained from that shot actually goes to your teammates instead. And that is why high damage games don't always result in an ace. So with this information in mind, let's now go over some of the ways that you can drastically increase your chances of getting an ace. First, you'll want to turn on Supremacy. The reason for this is if you manage to capture even one base, you will gain a large amount of XP as you gain more and more base capture points from it. And of course, if you can manage to capture 2 or even 3 bases, that's more points that are being credited to you, which means in the end, you will get more and more XP. Now, the second thing you need to do is to try to spot as much as possible. This applies mostly to lights and mediums, but can still be helpful with the other classes as well. And the nice thing about spotting is that it helps you to gain XP in 2 ways. Firstly, you will gain XP simply from the act of spotting, but you can also gain XP if, for example, you spot up an enemy that is outside of your teammate's view distance, which allows them to then deal damage when they wouldn't have normally been able to, which ends up giving you the XP. So this is kind of the reverse of the waffle situation that I gave you earlier, in that this time you are the one gaining the XP because you are helping out your teammates. They're therefore doing damage, which ends up giving you the XP. Now, the third thing that you should do to get more aces is to play a bit more aggressively. Now, in a normal situation, playing aggressively isn't always the recommended approach, as this tactic is more likely to cause you to fail and therefore lose. But on the flip side, if you do succeed, you can gain a good amount of XP from a lot of the actions that you would tend to take in these aggressive plays. Actions that might include spotting, blocking damage, capturing bases, and yes, farming damage. Now, I am not saying to just go YOLO. If you YOLO and die early on, you are obviously not doing anything to gain XP, and on top of that, if you do end up losing the game, you will actually get even less XP. So don't just go full YOLO mode and expect everything to go the way that you want it. There is a balance. Play aggressively, but be smart about the way that you go about it. So those are some things that you can do to get more aces more often. But we're not quite done yet, because there are some questions that I still need to answer, such as, can I get an ace in a loss? The answer to that is yes, you can. It is harder for sure, but it is nevertheless possible. Or can I ace even if I die? Again, the answer is yes, you can. From what I can tell, dying has little to no effect on XP. Can I get an ace if I AFK? I'm not really sure why I thought of this question, but the obvious answer is no, you can't. Unless perhaps you were AFK in the beginning of a game and somehow came back to life to clutch it. Not recommended, by the way. And lastly, what tanks do I recommend for getting aces? Well, this is a bit of a big question, but as a general rule, if you go to Blitz stars and filter tanks by either least players or lowest win rate, the tanks that show up at the top will usually, but not always, be slightly easier tanks to ace. So there you go, that is how you get more aces. And as a possible next step, if you would like to learn how to win more games, I have a tutorial on that as well, which you can find right here. But anyway, with that, I hope y'all enjoyed, and as always, have fun, good luck, and happy tanking.